There is a strange discomfort that appears when we hear stories about creatures that seem to steal control from another living body. It is not only fear or disgust. It is something quieter and deeper. A feeling that says if this can happen there, then maybe control is not as solid as we think. At first it sounds like a shocking story from nature, something extreme, something far from daily life. But if we stay with it a little longer, it starts to point toward a question we usually avoid. How much of our own behavior is really chosen? And how much is guided by forces we rarely notice? To understand why this idea feels so strong, we need to step back and look at what we value. From a young age, we are taught that free will is central to being human. We choose our path. We make decisions. We control our actions. This belief supports our sense of dignity and meaning. So when we hear about organisms that override another creature's behavior without its awareness, it feels like a direct threat to that belief. It feels like a loss of identity itself. That is the surface idea. Something else can take control. But the hidden assumption is even more unsettling. The assumption is that control is usually clear and fully owned until something takes it away. Yet when we look closer, this assumption starts to weaken. In daily life, we already accept many quiet influences. Think about habits. You reach for your phone without deciding to. You open an app without planning to. The action feels automatic. Or think about fear. Your body reacts before your thoughts arrive. Your heart speeds up. Your muscles tense. You did not choose that reaction. It happened first. Or think about social pressure. You laugh at a joke you do not find funny because others are laughing. You agree to plans you do not want because saying no feels harder. These are not parasites or infections. But they still guide behavior from the inside. This is where the idea deepens. Nature does not invent new rules just for dramatic stories. It often reveals rules that already exist, but in clearer form. The structural pattern here is that behavior follows influence more than intention. When a system is exposed to repeated signals, it adapts even if awareness is low. In simple creatures, this adaptation is visible and dramatic. In humans, it is quieter and layered. Culture, habits, fear, reward, and expectation all act like internal signals shaping action over time. No single force fully controls us, but many small forces together can steer us without us noticing. This is not about saying humans have no free will. It is about seeing that free will exists within constraints. Like a river that flows freely but still follows the shape of the land. When we believe control is absolute, we miss how easily it can be guided. This reframing shifts the story from horror to insight. The unsettling part is not that control can be lost. It is that control was never as complete as we imagined. Once we see this, the fear changes shape. Instead of worrying about being taken over by something dramatic, we begin to ask quieter questions. What am I responding to right now? What signals am I following? Why do certain ideas feel urgent or certain choices feel natural? Think about news cycles. Repeated messages create urgency even when nothing has changed. Think about advertising. Familiar images create comfort even when the product is unnecessary. Think about routines. Repeated actions become identity over time. None of these remove choice. But they guide it gently. This is where the application to daily life becomes useful. Awareness is not about fighting every influence. That would be exhausting and impossible. Awareness is about noticing patterns. When you feel a strong reaction, ask where it came from. When you feel resistance, ask what it protects. When you feel certainty, ask how it formed. These questions slow the process. They create a small space between signal and action. In that space, choice grows stronger. This is similar to how simple creatures survive influence. They evolve defenses not by resisting every threat but by adjusting structures. Humans do something similar through reflection and design. We build routines that support our values. We limit exposure to signals that drain attention. We create environments that make good choices easier. This is not weakness. It is wisdom. It accepts that influence is constant and works with that reality. As this idea settles, another layer appears. Fear of losing control often leads to tighter control. People cling harder to beliefs, routines, and identities. But tighter control can make influence stronger, not weaker. When systems are rigid, they break easily. When people refuse to question habits, they become predictable. Flexibility offers protection. Curiosity offers resilience. The more willing we are to examine our own patterns, the less power unseen forces have. This is not about suspicion or paranoia. It is about gentle honesty. Nature shows us that control without awareness is fragile. Control with awareness is adaptive. When we stop pretending we are fully independent, we actually gain more freedom. Because we stop being surprised by our own behavior. We stop acting on autopilot as often. We respond instead of react. This does not make life simple or clean. It makes it real. And maybe that is why these stories stay with us. Not because they are strange, but because they reflect something familiar. They remind us that influence is part of life. The question is not whether we are influenced. The question is whether we are paying attention. So as you move through your day and notice actions that feel automatic or emotions that rise without warning, you might pause and ask yourself this. Which unseen signals are shaping my choices right now, and which ones do I want to shape instead?